Do you ever get that feedback as a debater from an adjudicator that just says you need more analysis, or you need to prove why something is true more than you already are? It's a very common and at times a very annoying piece of feedback, but it is really important that we add detail and analysis to our arguments. And that's what this week's Conquering Debating video is going to look at. G'day everyone, my name's Rob and I'm from Speaking Schools Australasia. And today we're going to look at mechanisms. The first important thing to think about is what even is a mechanism? All a mechanism involves is how you change the world from what it is like now to what it will be at the end of your argument. Let's take an analogy. Say I have a tennis ball and then there's a broken window. The mechanism would be me throwing the tennis ball at the window that then results in the window being broken. And there are three main types of mechanisms that you're going to use in debates, and we're going to go through them today. The first type of mechanism is what we call topic-based mechanisms. And these are mechanisms that just come from the words of the topic, so they're normally pretty straightforward. Let's take the example topic that we should ban junk food. The mechanism there is the ban itself, which means that it can't be bought or sold anywhere. The second important type of mechanism that you'll have in debates is what we call incentives mechanisms. And this is all about your stakeholders. How is a stakeholder going to respond to the change that the model makes in the world? And why are they likely to respond that way? And the why is really important because that taps into their incentives and it becomes your mechanisms. Let's look at the junk food example again. How are the current producers of junk food likely to respond to this? Or take someone who's addicted to the fats and the sugar in junk food. What are they incentivized to do after the ban has occurred? Will they make their own cheeseburgers, or will they buy them in some kind of underground black market? The third type of mechanism you'll likely use in debating is what we call interference mechanisms. And this is important for rebuttal as well. So the first two types of mechanisms we looked at really assume that people are acting in ways that are rational and logical and in their best interests. An interference mechanism is anything that changes that, which means people aren't acting in a rational way. Let's look at the junk food example again. If we could communicate to people how unhealthy junk food is and how bad it is for their health and their long-term happiness, maybe people wouldn't eat junk food as much, because that makes logical sense. However, things like advertising and the popular culture around celebrating junk food means that it's changed the way people think and we get a different outcome. And it's important to use incentive mechanisms as rebuttal to kind of show how the other team's arguments maybe aren't as likely as they say they are. So how do you bring all three of these mechanisms together? When you're in the prep room writing your speech, you should be constantly asking yourself the question, why? Why is this true? Why will this happen? Why will a person act in a certain way? And you should be looking back to the three mechanisms we've talked about as reasons to answer that question and to show the adjudicator you're providing that additional layer of detail in your arguments. And now we've reached the end of this video. If you take away these three mechanisms, topic-based, incentive-based, and interference, you'll be able to add that extra layer of detail to your arguments to make them even more persuasive and help you win the debate. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you like and subscribe. Until then, we'll see you next time.